welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Well, it's a lovely sunny day. As you can see, the sun's high up in the sky, and we've had some reasonably sort of warmish weather. It has been getting down to kind of 2 or 3 degrees at night, but during the day it's actually not too bad, to be honest with you. The ground, really, you can't do much with it on the allotment at the moment. It's really wet. I just thought I'd quickly show you in here. The second lot of broad beans I put in, for some reason, just haven't taken at all. I'm not sure if a mouse has got in here and scratched through and had the seed, or the first few I put in, there, as you can see, have come through okay. But unfortunately, the rest of them just haven't come through at all. I've got my dahlias here. They're all in the greenhouse, just keeping warm. All I've done is dug them up, turn them upside down, and let them dry out, and they'll be perfectly okay there. And of course, over here we've got the beans drying out, runner beans and also the French beans. As you can see there, they're really drying out, and you can see the seeds are just sort of coming out there. So they'll be ready. Well, they've been ready for a few weeks, to be fair, to get out. Unfortunately, the birdhouse gourds that I took, as you can see, they've all kind of rotted away, really. You know, there's no kind of structure left in them at all. So unfortunately, I didn't sort of crop any that, you know, worth keeping. I've still got the ones from last year, so I've still got some drying out, you know, ready to do something with. But unfortunately, the ones that grew last year didn't really come to much. So just to give you a quick look around. Obviously, there's not much going on this time of year, but we've had quite a bit of damage through wind. As you can see, this fence has come through here. The greenhouses have survived, which is a good thing. The herbs here, obviously the comfrey and that has all sort of died down, and these herbs here, so I need to cut these down, really. It's one thing I've been trying to get around to doing, but the weather's not been particularly good. The sage is still sort of growing, but obviously this is the mint and the balm, and that all needs to be cut down. The rosemary, believe it or not, is actually coming into flower. Now, this rosemary flowered all of last year, and the bees love rosemary flowers, so it's always nice to have it there. But what I do need to do is cut that back a little bit. It's getting a little bit sort of unruly now. Okay, just coming down here, just quickly take you around whilst the weather's decent. The asparagus bed, obviously we cut all that down. I need to put that wood straight and put some sort of covering over, just to you know, sort of freshen it up a bit. I need to clean this comfrey out. The raspberries are as they were. The fruit trees, really now's the right time of year to trim these down. Obviously the trees are dormant at the moment, so if you cut a tree down or trim a tree whilst it's dormant, you can actually you know, stop it from, you know, sort of growing. Basically, with a tree, if you cut it whilst there's the sap, i.e. it's growing, what it'll do is it'll react to you cutting it back, and what it'll do is it'll start to throw out loads of runners and shoots and stuff, and rather than concentrating on growing the fruit, it'll just grow its branches and that, which obviously is not what you want. You don't want a tree full of branches with no fruit on it. But if you cut it this time of year, this is the right time of year to do it, whilst there's no sap in the tree. And obviously I'm talking about deciduous trees, you know, the ones that drop the leaves in the winter. Then, you know, this will grow slowly and will have fruit on it, that for next year. So I need to do the apple tree, the cherry tree, and the pear tree at the end, all the same. So I'll be doing those in the next couple of weeks or so when I get 5 minutes. The strawberries are looking okay. Now I have actually still got half a row of potatoes in, believe it or not. I just haven't got around to coming up, but I've been putting loads of muck on. As you can see, this is chicken manure. This is magical stuff. If you can get hold of chicken manure for your allotment, it is by far the best stuff to put on there. It's got all the nutrients in there and it's really strong. So obviously you don't want too much in there, but if you've got chickens or you know somebody with chickens, if you can get some manure off them, that's ideal for your ground. Obviously potatoes are going to go in here again this year. Now I've been digging up the parsnips. I've not shown you on video because the ground has just been that muddy. It's been sort of quite wet really this winter. But as you can see, I'm just under halfway through the parsnips, and we have had some really good sized parsnips and nicely shaped as well. Obviously the big problem with parsnips is you tend to get them forking like carrots and stuff like that if you're not careful. But all of the parsnips I've had out so far have been nice and straight and nice healthy plants. But I'll be digging some up in the not too distant future, so I'll do a quick clip of me digging them up. But those are the parsnips anyway, about halfway through there. The first tunnel here, you can tell the weather's been because the spinach is actually still growing, believe it or not, as you can see, because normally this dies down altogether. The flower sprouts at the back, as you can see, are starting to form on the side of the stem, so I shan't go in because it's quite muddy, but as you can see they're starting to form, so I will show you a clip of those in the not too distant future. The kale, we've been eating kale now for a couple of 3 months, and all I do basically is take the leaves off. As you can see, the nice healthy plant, and I just take off a few leaves off each plant and then chop that up and have that you know, like sort of cabbage. But the good thing with kale is you can keep picking at the same plant and it'll just keep growing back. As you can see, this one here, as I've been picking at it, it's been growing these smaller leaves underneath, so I can then go back down and start pulling the smaller leaves off as well. But see the spinach is still growing, even though there's some holes in the leaves, the spinach is actually still growing, which just goes to show we've had a mild winter so far. Even though it's been wet and it has been cold, it's not been freezing. You know, it's been just sort of cold and that. Obviously this is where the courgettes were, and that's, as you can see, there's the odd one still left there. All the rhubarb and that sort of died down now. And in this second tunnel here, I shan't go in, but as you can just see through, the beetroot in here, we've had a few of those, and also the spinach is still growing quite nicely. Those are the Swedes. They are starting to fatten up now, but for some reason the Swedes haven't grown well at all. Okay, so that's that side. And this time of the year, you know, people with allotments, they tend to do quite structural things to the allotments. As you can see, my two neighbours here, Paul there's taken down his tunnel that he had, and he's building quite a large construction. Looks like he's building a church in the middle of it, and the tunnel that was on his is now on next to me here. So Keith's had his tunnel, so he's going to be putting that to his son until I've got it. The one thing I did want to show you is, I don't know if you can see sorry about the wind noise as well, I don't know if you can see the roof is bowing here. That's where the weight of the snow has bent the pole, so what I need to do is get in there and straighten that up as well. This is where the beans were. Obviously all the beans have been taken out, you saw that on a clip previously, but you know, the beans will be going somewhere here again this year. That's the Colucco, and I've not dug any up yet. I should have done it by now, to be fair, but what I'll be doing is digging that up again in the next week or so. Now it's starting to warm up. The reason I've not been doing anything is the ground has been that wet. It's just been like really wet and muddy. I mean, if you look at Paul's allotment over there where he's been walking over, it literally is just like a, you know, it's just mud everywhere, and walking on the ground at this time of year is going to compact the ground, which isn't good. You know, you want to keep the air in the ground as much as you can, so I've been trying my damnedest not to walk on any of the ground, but I need to dig these out now. They should have come out really last year, but I'll be digging them out before too much longer, and I'll show you what they look like. So here are the parsnips. You can see the top of the parsnips there. Look, obviously that one looks like it's actually forked, but you know, the parsnips are doing well, and we've had some really nice meals out of there. So I'll dig some of those up as I explained, and I'll show you what they look like. Again, sorry about the wind noise. Right, okay, and then just coming back up here, obviously got the fruit trees and that again, and the new greenhouse we put in at the back end of last year. So I'm just starting to sort of getting to gear now to start this year, so obviously in the next few weeks you'll see a lot more videos coming out. Okay, and in the second greenhouse, basically what I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks is putting a work surface in here, so I can put the bedding plants and stuff like that in there, and then I'll be digging out all of this bottom bit. Well, I'll probably do that first, and then put some more slabs down here as a path. That's basically what's going to be happening in here in the next couple of weeks. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm now the next day on the first lot of video I did, it ran out of tape, but the following days you can see we've actually had snow again today. So the first video I took was on the 19th of January, but as you can see on the 21st we've had a bit of snow this morning. But anyway, it is all thawing out, but again it just makes the ground really wet to do any work on the actual ground. But I'll be focusing in on the greenhouse over the next couple of weeks and getting some of the stuff started. So that's what the allotment looks like on the 19th and 21st of January. Okay, the next one comes from Craig's 89, and he was asking me about the no dig or dig and what my thoughts were. To have an allotment where you have no dig, you can't have any perennial weeds. Unfortunately, I've got perennial weeds. I've got bindweed, I've got some twitch grass as well, or goose grass in my allotment. So I can't really afford not to dig. I have had sections of the allotment before where I've not dug it one year and I've just planted brassicas in it the following year, which is, you know, just sort of quite common to do. But basically what you're talking about is layering manure on top of the ground. Rather than digging it, you lay manure on the top of the ground and you let the worms sort of do the work for you, if you like, so they come up and bring the muck down and sort of mix it all up themselves. So that's the kind of philosophy of a sort of no dig sort of allotment. I haven't actually done that before. I've seen plenty of people who have done it, and I guess it does save you the labour of sort of digging, and I think that's a more natural way of growing things. I mean, you know, in nature, you know, you haven't got things digging the ground. You know, they just go onto the ground. You know, the ground's never dug. So it is a more natural way of doing it. Obviously, what we're doing is kind of against nature by digging stuff. There's a lot of thoughts about things like microhazal fungi in the ground, which is a fungus which grows in the ground. And basically, what it will do is when a plant is growing in the ground, it will basically connect to the roots of the plant. Microhazal fungi can't make its own sugars, or I think it's sugars. So basically, what it basically does is it feeds the plant's nutrients. So if you've got a plant, say it's that right, and it's got that many roots on it, if you've got microhazal fungi connected to it, the microhazal fungi could be going for meters beyond the plant, and so obviously it brings all that nutrient to that plant, feeds the plant with the nutrients out of the ground, so the potassium, the all the goodness out of the ground, brings that the NPK, brings that to the plant, and then in exchange the plant gives the microhazal fungi the starches, the sugars, and then obviously that's what it's kind of a relationship where the microhazal fungi can't survive without a plant. The plant benefits from microhazal fungi being there. So if you don't dig the ground, obviously all that microhazal fungi will be in the ground, and and it's helping your plants grow. If you dig the ground and you don't grow anything on the ground in the winter, etc., the microhazal fungi will die. It won't be in the ground. So basically, the plant will then have to survive on its roots alone. It won't have the help from the microhazal fungi. So, going back to the dig no dig, there are pros and cons both ways. If you haven't got perennial weeds, if you have got perennial weeds, things like bindweed, twitch grass, or mare's tail, or wherever, you've got to dig the ground. You've got to dig that out. There's no way you can deal with those kinds of weeds without digging the ground, really. So that's why I dig. But I think even if I haven't got those, I'd still dig, because basically
That's the way you can get the weeds out of the ground, and so you've only got the plants growing. However, having said that, there's an argument the other way to say it's a more natural way of growing without digging the ground, and you've got the mycorrhizal fungi in the ground, and that's going to help the plants. You'll end up with healthier plants. So there's arguments both ways, really. But as I say, I go for the dig method. Right, so the next one comes from Mark. It's Allotment Digging, and he was saying about the blight in the greenhouse. Mark had a terrible year last year. He lost all of his tomatoes in one greenhouse overnight, pretty much. I was quite sad when I watched his video on YouTube. But the blight I've had hasn't been too bad this year. But he was saying as soon as you see blight in your greenhouse, get the tomato plants out. And obviously all the ones that were affected, I'll fetch them straight out. These ones, I've got a little bit of blight on it, but basically the plants are dead now anyway. I was just robbing the tomato. But I've still got, we're in the second week of December now, and I'm still picking tomatoes out of the greenhouse, so I can't complain really. But yeah, you are right, Mark. As soon as the first signs of blight, get the plant out of the greenhouse and dispose of it in your green bin or whatever. Don't compost it. But yeah, you are right, absolutely. Next one comes from Gaynor Bailey, and she was saying the yacon propagation. Yes, you are right. I did explain. This is the first time I've grown yacon, but basically, I'll be digging this up probably today. So I'll put a little clip on. But basically, with a yacon plant, you've got two sort of. If you dig the root up, you've got two things underneath the ground. You've got the crowns, which are around the top of the plant, near the top of the surface of the soil. And these look like ginger, where you've got these little pointed bits on. Obviously, that's why they're called a crown. And those are the bits you save to plant next year. So those will propagate into a new plant. The bit underneath, which are kind of long, thin, potato-shaped things, round, with no points on, those are the bits you eat. So there's two different parts to the root, if you like. The bit that's at the bottom, long and thin like a big fat potato, those are the bits you eat. The bits that are near the top of the soil that have got little pointy bits on there, the crowns, they're the bits you save for next year. Right, next one comes from Nigel Muddy Boots over in Wolverhampton, and he was talking about the new greenhouse and basically what you're going to grow. I'm not sure. I mean, greenhouses really, you need to. A lot of people have just one greenhouse, and they try to grow everything that they want to grow in one greenhouse. But as you know, different plants need different things. Things like tomatoes need lots of sun, lots of heat. So these two greenhouses most certainly lend themselves to that, because we've got lots of sun, which makes the greenhouse nice and hot. These are ideally positioned, so sun comes around here. That'll make the greenhouse nice and warm, lots of sun, and then so I'll get things like peppers and tomatoes and aubergines and things like that are going to grow really well. Cucumbers are a different matter. Cucumber plants, if we're talking about only crop type plants or fruit, cucumbers don't like direct sun, pretty much. They like dappled shades. That's what they do best at, or the environment they do best in. So these two greenhouses neither really lend themselves particularly well for cucumbers. So what I'm going to do, I think, is grow cucumbers in my other greenhouse, which is behind these two. That's got less light because it's the other side of the fence. And I might even paint the glass white to give it a bit more shade. So I think that's going to be the best for cucumbers. And then these two greenhouses, I'm going to be growing peppers, tomatoes, all that kind of stuff, and obviously all the seeds and stuff for the rest of the allotment. So that's pretty much what I'm going to grow. What I am going to grow in the other greenhouse are peppers. I'd like to try and grow more peppers next year, chilies and also sweet peppers and stuff like that. So I'm going to be focused in on that for the other greenhouse. But I'll probably grow tomatoes in both anyway. But yeah. I don't think you can ever have too many tomatoes. This year I did really well. I had about 50 odd kilos of tomatoes. Was it more than that? I can't remember now. But I had lots of tomatoes. But I'd like to grow a few more, because they're always, you can freeze tomatoes, and they are a super fruit really. I mean, all the nutrients and goodness and antioxidants and stuff in tomatoes, really, they're a really healthy thing to eat. Right, the next one comes from Allotment Life, Brian, and he was talking about cucumber. Now he grew one called La Diva this year, and he was saying it was really good. He was getting about 10 to 15 cucumbers off every fortnight. He says they're reasonably small, but he was saying he's got a greenhouse in Dapple Shade, and he said I'm not quite sure how many plants he had, but he said this La Diva grew really well, and was all over. It was growing like mad. He was getting lots of fruit off it, and he was saying about the one comment that I made about carrots, because I don't grow carrots because they're cheap enough to buy in the shop. He was saying that he grows things because he likes the quality of them anyway, and I completely agree. I mean, I've grown carrots in the past, but I'm growing. Basically, my children are growing up now, so they're pretty much adults. So I'm growing for 5 adult. So I'm feeding 5 adults. So I have to grow things that to feed five adults really. So I'm looking for quality obviously, but I'm also looking for volume as well. I've got 5 mouths to feed. So the things like carrots and that is not a good use of the ground. Because you can buy carrots really cheaply. Admittedly, onions aren't particularly a good use of ground, but onions are reasonably low maintenance, and you're almost guaranteed a good crop with onions. And I think onions do taste a lot better if you grow them yourself. Obviously, carrots do as well, but I've never had massive amounts of success with carrots. And if you buy them from the shop, they're easy. For 50p you can buy a big bag of carrots, which will last you, a week. So I'm not too bothered about that. One thing that I would absolutely say from a quality point of view that stands out for me are potatoes. You can't buy potatoes as good as the ones you can grow. That goes without saying. If you buy, even if you buy the same variety in the shop, if you buy Maris Piper potatoes out of a supermarket, they never taste as good as the ones you can grow in your garden. Tomatoes, you just cannot buy tomatoes in the UK that taste anywhere near as good as the ones you can grow in your own greenhouse. And strawberries. If you compare the strawberries that you can grow, tomatoes you can grow, and potatoes you can grow in your own garden, the taste and the flavour and the texture puts the ones you can buy in the shop to shame. It really does. You cannot buy tomatoes that taste nice in a shop in the UK compared to the ones that you can grow yourself. And strawberries, basically, if you buy strawberries from a supermarket, they've basically got no flavour, I think, because I'm used to my own strawberries, which have got really nice flavour. And you can never beat picking fruit off a plant and eating it straight away in the garden. It's priceless. So yes, from a quality point of view, you're absolutely right. But those are the 3 that stand out for me: potatoes, tomatoes, and strawberries. Those are the ones that I would most certainly say, if you go in a garden, or even if you just got a little bit of ground, those are the 3 things to grow, because you just cannot buy them in the shop. Next one comes from Patricia N Cube, I think you pronounce it, and saying about the expense, the expense sheet, and saying how she might do that next year. Excuse me. I do it just to keep track of what I'm spending and what produce that I'm sort of getting out the garden. I've been doing it now for probably about 5 or 6 years, and it just gives me an idea of what's worth growing from a financial point of view. Even though I do it for enjoyment, don't get me wrong, but it just lets me keep tabs of sort of what I'm doing. It's really easy, most certainly when you first start off growing in an allotment and stuff like that. It's really easy to overspend. It's worth looking out for your bargains. It's worth knowing when to go and get stuff, because you can save yourself a fortune. Gardening, I've seen, most certainly there's people on YouTube, and they say, oh, I've been to the shops and I've bought this and I've bought that. And I'm thinking, you must be spending an absolute fortune on things for your allotment, and what actually do you get back? They say, oh, we're doing this variety or this variety, and all the rest of it, and they grow 2 or 3 plants. So I'm thinking, them seeds have cost you £4. You've grown 2 plants, so the plants have cost you £2 each. You could have bought it in the shop for half of that, without all the bother. So, that's kind of why I do it, just to, as a sanity check that what I'm doing is worthwhile, if you like. Next comment comes from Mags H again. And she was saying that she's had £250 of tomatoes this year, which that's a really good year. I'm not quite sure how many plants she had, but she said she was growing beefsteak tomatoes. I've grown those in the past years ago, probably about 20 years ago when I grew them. But she was saying one tomato was between 20 ounces and £2, which is sorry, £250 in metric is 115 kilos, and then the beef tomatoes themselves were between 20 ounces and £2. In metric, that's between 0.56 kilos and 0.9 kilos in weight. So they're pretty good. You know, I mean, those tomatoes must have been somewhere like that. You know, they must have been really big tomatoes. So Max, it sounds like you've done really well with that. You've also put a comment on there about the Don Pedro planter seeds. I'm very happy to send you some, but unfortunately, YouTube have changed the format of every channel, and I can't find a way of sending you a private message so we can swap addresses. So I'm working on that, but there's some seeds here with your name on. I just need to work out a way of getting them to you. So I have seen your note a few weeks ago, but I can't work out how we can exchange addresses. Next one comes from Richard Simmons over in Germany, and he was saying, next year when I record the cost and stuff, you know, the shit, it'd be worthwhile recording how much time I actually spend in the allotment. I'm going to try and do that for next year. I think you'd be surprised how little time I actually spend up here, to be honest with you. Most certainly the last few months I've not spent a lot of time up here, but what I'll try and do is you know, as I'm going through, I'll try and record the time. Now, I typically run the sheets, if you like, from April to April, but what I'll do is I'll start from now, if you like, and I'll just record how much time I spend each day up the allotment, and I'll try and put some data together to show you how much time I spend on average in a week or whatever. But I will do that. The last comment I just want to quickly say isn't from anybody on the but there are quite a few people that have put comments on about they're putting up greenhouses and they're just about to put a greenhouse up, or they've watched my videos doing this one next door to me here, and they're also thinking of doing it. The one piece of advice I will, but which I haven't put in any of the greenhouse videos, is I had a bit of bother with getting the bolts for the greenhouse. As you know, I changed a lot of the bolts for new ones, most certainly the structural ones. I went to a few places to get bolts. I went to a local garden centre and bought a load of bolts and ended up throwing them all in the bin because the quality of them wasn't very good. And it's all about the material. These bolts come from Wilko's, and they were about £1. There's 15, I think, yeah, 15 nut and bolt sets in there. These are really good quality. I can't sing the praises enough. These bolts are in the greenhouse. I had no trouble with these whatsoever. The ones I bought from the garden centre, I basically threw them in the bin, because basically what was happening is as I was tightening them up, they were just shearing, and I broke off about 4 or 5 bolts, and I wasn't tightening them up too tight. And then it was when I was putting the top of the door in. I didn't show this on the video. The previous videos have been putting the greenhouse together, but when I was putting the door together, the bolts were just shearing, and I went through about 4 or 5 bolts. In the end, I threw them in the bin and went and got some of these from Wilko's, and these are really good bolts. I've not sheared one of these. Obviously this is a new packet that I picked up the other day for spares. But the one recommendation I will make is if you're going to put a greenhouse up, go down to Wilko's and buy these. These are the bolts to buy. Don't buy the ones from the garden centres, because, or at least my garden centre, the quality wasn't good at all. It's all about the material. Obviously there's lots of different types of aluminium and alloys of, and obviously the metal that was being used for the bolts I got from the garden centre wasn't very good. It was just shearing. There's no strength in it at all. These are really good. So go to Wilko's for your bolts. Also, Wilko's do these. These are the W clips. Now, you can get stainless steel versions of these. I've not seen them in the shops. I have seen them on eBay, so it might be worthwhile you getting them. But these are 25 clips from Wilko's. Again, for about £1. They're about £1.25 or something like that. These were, and to be honest with you, for £1.25, they I think they're galvanised. Yeah, galvanised, which is obviously zinc coated. W clips and put it in the glass. Again, I would recommend these. I have used a few. I've bought a few packs of these, and I've already put some on. I've replaced some of the clips that I put on earlier that were the original clips, which were a bit rusty. So I've been just tinkering with it just to get it right. But again, if you want your bolts or your clips for your greenhouse, if you're going to put a greenhouse up, for a few pounds, these are about £1, these are about £1. You can go to Wilko's, pick some of these up, and even if you're not putting a greenhouse up, it's worth you having some of these as spares. In your greenhouse, just in case you need to replace any glass. It's always worth one of them. So I recommend going to Wilko's to get anything like this, because I think these are really good quality.
So I hope this episode was of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you got below, and I'll always get back to you. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.